right, good morning everybody. I've been out this morning fishing a little bit. I got 3 fish so far. This is gonna be just a real quick one, about a minute or so long. I had a couple emails come to me saying that with me pushing some cheap rods and reels that I'm doing you guys kind of a disservice, because the rods and reels I'm saying are good are actually not any good. So I'm gonna let you be a decision of that. I'll let you guys decide on that actually. This rod here, I pulled this one out. A friend of mine gave me a black max reel, so I put it on it. Look, it's a pistol grip. This rod here, this Berkley Lightning rod, is over 20 years old. I've caught some big fish on this rod. It's lasted me all this time. I got 3 on it today. This rod here, brand new, was probably, maybe at the time, it was probably 50 bucks, 40 bucks, I would say, something like that when it was brand new. Back then, 20 years ago, 20 bucks is, 40 bucks is a little bit more expensive. That would have been probably like, I guess, like $100 rod now, but it wasn't that expensive then, is what I'm saying. The $40 rod then was still pretty relatively cheap. I mean, if I look at G. Loomis's or Fenwicks, they're a lot more expensive. But the bottom line is that what I wanted to say is that to the guys out there who texted me, or not texted me, emailed me about these rods not being up to snuff, this rod here is 20 years old. It's still going strong. It has half the components that these new rods have. Like every rod I buy, even the cheap ones, are made with better blanks. They've got Fuji guides on them. They usually have a Fuji reel seat or a comparable knockoff on it. The cork is good on it. I mean, it isn't like a 30, 40-year-old rod that when you bought the rod, you went, oh God, that's a crappy rod. I mean, these rods in the $40, $50 range are actually in really great shape. I mean, they're really good rods, and I see them lasting a while. The Swords Orange is a great example. That rod is a $30 rod, 35. I've got them 3 years old now. So I spent $35 on a rod, and it's 3 years old, divided up. Even if I say $10 a year, I mean that's what I spent, $10 a year on a rod. If you bought a $300 rod and you've had it for 3 years, you're still not on the money side as far as I am. I mean, I spent $35 and I've gotten 3 years out of it. You spent $300 and got 3 years out of it. So I mean, you do the math on your own, but I really think it depends on how you take care of your rods. This rod here, like I said, it's 20 years old. It came with me from California. It has, I know of, at least one 9-pound bass on it and a bunch of 8s and 7s. I distinctly remember catching a 9-pound bass on those because it about ripped the rod out of my hand when it did it. I was fishing a golf course in Lakewood. But yeah, I mean, it all really, I guess it depends on what you consider good. I mean, if you're throwing, 60-pound braid and you're tearing a rod up, I guess it could be a crappy rod. But for me, my rods have held up. I do some, winter time stuff on them. I clean them up. I usually wipe them down real good. I pledge all the eyes. Now, if you've never done that, I take, pledge wood cleaner, or polishing, and I polish all the eyes. Because as the summer rolls on here, you'll find out that, if you're pulling through moss, what's going through your guides on your line? Moss. So I take all the guides and I pledge them up, and that allows the line to slide through better, in my opinion anyway. I do the same thing with the reel down here, that little guide down there. I clean it out with a Q-tip, and I use a little pledge in it, just to make sure I have a pretty slick thing through it. And the eyes themselves, I mean, once you pledge them, they're pretty well protected. But even if I don't think I've had any rust in the last 5 years, other than a rod I really neglected and left it out in a shed. And I live on the East Coast, right on the shore. So that's the only rust I've had. And a little bit of witch hazel on a cotton ball usually takes care of that. And you pledge it up and you're good for another bunch of years. I've never replaced an eye on this rod. All the eyes are original. Every one of them, as you can see, they all had that no insert, eye on them all the way up to the top. So I have not done a change out on the eyelets. The reel seat's the same as it was. There's no real damage to the reel seat. I'll flip it over here. If you look here, it's an original Berkley Lightning rod. So for those who say that, you don't get your money's worth out of the cheaper rods, I don't know what to tell you. It's worked out for me. It's worked out for a lot of people I know. This is a great example here. This rod here is just, I mean, it's a workhorse. It's caught me fish today. I brought it out. We get in that habit of I got to have the latest and greatest, so it's got all the long handles on it. But You know, this rod here, this pistol grip, is it got me a lot of bass over the last bunch of years. So I would say it's definitely worth the money I spent on it. Cheap rod or not, it catches me fish, and that's about all I can tell you. Is that you know, your wear and tear on a rod is going to be whatever it is you get out of it, the mileage you get out of it. But for me, I don't recommend a rod that's going to be in the, you know, it's the $10 rod out of the Walmart bargain bin. The rods I'm saying are really good shape rods. I mean, there's Shimano's, there's Tsunamis, they're, you know, even Berkley Lightnings like this. You know, they're decent rods. And you can get the rods, like I said this in another video, is that the rods, the cheap rods nowadays are built better than the $100 rods were, you know, 20 years ago. So if you have any doubts, you know, give one a shot. No one else to tell you. But anyway, I'm ranting and raving. Let me get going here, but I'm gonna do some more fishing. But for me, I've got my money out of some rods, you know, and unless, you know, you're, like I said, unless you're really tearing your rods up really bad, I don't see how you don't get your money out of it. I mean, if you buy one rod a year at $35 to $50 a year, you spent $50 for a rod. So that means you spend as much as you would for one movie and some food. You know, that's it. If you went out to the theater and bought a box of popcorn, a couple sodas, you know, if you and your girl, and a couple tickets, you spent more on that 2-hour show than you would have on a $50 rod. So I guess it's all perspective. But let me know what you think. Am I wrong on thinking that? Am I pushing some cheap rods? Am I pushing rods that you don't think would hold up for the amount of money that you're spending on them? I guess is the bottom line. But let me know. Thanks for watching.